Hi, my name's Aaron Curry, and in this video series, I'm going to show you why you can stop worrying about your pension when you build a buy-to-let portfolio in the coming house price crash. And I'll show you how you can buy 2 to 10 houses at rock bottom prices so you cash in on the biggest discounts since 2009, all without sacrificing any time with your family or creating a second job for yourself. And ultimately, I'm going to show you how you can write a retirement date today that's less than 10 years away because you'll have a bigger lifetime income than £1 million pension would give you, thanks to my unique 6 C's system. Now, that's a lot to cover, which is why there are 4 videos in this series. Before I go any further, I'd just like to explain why the video quality is not what I'd want it to be. We're still coming out of lockdown. We've got local lockdowns going on, etc. And we still need to keep our distance from each other. So I can't work with a videographer. So it's just me, my laptop, and a webcam. So if you want to know how you can buy 2 to 10 houses in the coming house price crash, so you can cash in on the biggest discounts since 2009 without sacrificing time with your family or creating a second job for yourself, and the information is more important to you than the video quality, then you'll love this 4-part video series. Now, in the first video, I showed you why house prices are going to fall 5 to 10% in October or November of this year. If you haven't seen that video, then please click the link to the right or somewhere around this video to watch it now. In today's video, I'm going to show you my golden rules to buy world-class properties so your portfolio makes profit from monthly cash flow and 2 other ways. When your portfolio profits in all 3 ways, it is 4 times more profitable. So you reach your income goals faster than you dare to dream. First, though, let me tell you how I discovered this amazing system. You see, when I started out on my property investing journey, okay, it's about 20 years ago now, I started out having just read a book, just one book, and it was Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, okay? And if you've read that book, you'll know it's a concept book rather than a how-to book. It's a great book about the concept of property and assets and everything else. But it's a concept book, not a how-to book. So I'd read the book, and then I went and took massive action. And I ran immediately into massive problems. My first 10 houses were a disaster. And I'd have lost my shirt if it wasn't for the fact that it was a rising market. I got away with it because it was a rising market. I'd taken my limited knowledge, my concepts, I'd taken somebody else's money, and I'd started taking massive action. And I had people that were trashing my properties. I had people that weren't paying the rent. I had, I had someone set the property on fire and burn it down. Literally, they had a drugs party and they burned the house to the ground. I bought a deal off a property sourcer. I didn't know what one was back then. And they totally ripped me off. They ripped the vendor off. I ended up with a vendor who I thought was moving out in 6 months. They thought they were living there forever on this reduced rent. They'd been totally ripped off. It was a mess. It was a disastrous mess. But here was the thing. I learned from my mistakes. I went and got myself around the best possible investors I could find in the world, the best possible investors I could find in the UK. I said, what are you doing? How are you doing it? And I learned from them. And by modeling what they were doing and getting their techniques into place and refining those, I was able to build a portfolio that meant within just another 7 purchases, my first 10 a disaster, making me nothing really, within another 7 purchases, I'm at a point where me and my business partner at the time could choose to quit our jobs if that's what we wanted to do, okay? And I learned from investors. I learned from people who were making 100K plus a year. That was my criteria. I'm going to interview you. I'm going to come and speak to you if you're making £100,000 plus a year, not just a one-off year, but consistently. And from that, I was able to identify these 10 areas that you need to master to successfully invest in property. There are 10 areas that you need to master to an 8, 9, or 10 out of 10. And if you master each of those areas to an 8, 9, or 10, and you take the action, I can almost guarantee you can get financially free through property. In fact, I'm going to show you how, with just 5 or 6 properties, you can get financially free in a very, very short window in this next 5 years, how you can do that. And I can help you to do that. But here's the scary thing. What I also identified was if just one or two of those areas were missing, just one or two, you could be a 7, 8, 9, or 10 at 8 of them. But if just one or two were a 3 or a 4, I can almost guarantee you're going to fall over along the way. You're not going to make it. And that's why you meet, and I meet so many people, and you may even be one of these people, that either never got started in property. You've been around this property stuff for a while, but you've never got started because of fear and other stuff's got in the way. Or so many people that have got 1, 2, or 3 in the last 10 years, the last decade, they've bought 1, 2, or 3 properties. But that's not enough to get financially free. And in fact, often they've created a second job looking after those properties because they brought the wrong ones. And also it's not enough to get financially free. And then they've stopped or they've quit, or it's just going incredibly slow. So I wanted a set of rules and a framework and a structure that allowed me to explode it, that allowed me to get it done. And I did. I got those 7 houses within a year, allowed me to get it done. And in future years, by the way, I bought 70 houses in a year. So you can definitely in these next few months buy 2 to 10. I bought 70 plus. Okay. So allow you to get it done. This structure, this framework that allows you to get it done. And what I want you to break free from is this belief that you need 25 houses to be on 50 grand a year. People go, oh, the rent coming in is only 200 a month. I'm going to need loads of these. I'm going to need 20, 25 houses to be on 50 grand a year. I'm never going to get there, so I won't even start. I want you to understand, and I want you to get, and I'm going to show you that you can get there with just 6 houses in your portfolio. Let's reach that goal. Let's have a goal actually of 8 to 10, but you can get there with just 6 in your portfolio. I want you to go beyond and even more. Okay. And here's the secret. The secret lies in what I call leveraged financial freedom. Leveraged financial freedom. So here's how it looks. Let's show you how this works. And let's start by, first of all, thinking about the property market and starting to get an understanding of the property market and how the property market works. Because you need to understand how the market works to be able to get how this works. So if we have a look at this graphic, let me show you this graphic. This graphic shows the 50-year period from 1969 to 2008, okay? 2009. So over that 50-year period, you've got, here's the housing market. And that solid line in the middle is what actually happened in the housing market. And the dotted line is property price growth based at 4.5%, 5%, okay? So the solid line shows you that over that 50-year period, on average, including the downturns, the drops, any crunches, people will say, oh, in the 70s, there was a tough period. In the 80s, there was a tough period. It includes that drop there in 2008 when we had that drop and then it started to rise again. When you include all those periods, over this period as a whole, on average, property prices went up at 10.3%. Now, I generally quote a wider stat than that. If you look back over the last 85 or 90 years now, the national average is 7.9%. That's worth writing down. 7.9% growth, national average. So that includes the downturns and the drops as well as the up periods, okay? So if it's 7.9% national average, what does that mean? And let me work with that picture and show you what that means. So just have that in your mind. Now, next what I want to do is get you to think about what happens with what I call my 4 Ps. My 4 Ps. Lots of people, and again, you may be one of these people, they might buy property for cash. So they go buy a property, they've got £100,000, they buy it for cash. Now, once they've got that property that they've bought for cash, if that goes up in value by 10%, let's say, doesn't matter if that takes 4 years, 3 years, 2 years, 1 year, it goes up 10%, okay? What's it worth? Well, the house is then worth £110,000. So the market went up 10%, their asset went up 10%. And if they had no mortgage on it, they've still got no mortgage on it, okay? And by the way, that's a bit like the stock market, isn't it? If you go buy £100,000 worth of Tesco shares, let's say, and the market goes up 10% in stocks and shares, your £100,000 worth of shares becomes worth 110,000. Market goes up 10%, your asset goes up 10%. And from that point of view, property and stocks and shares are the same. Market generally over time doesn't go up at the same time, but over time they go up the same, and property and stocks and shares go up the same. So why am I here saying that property can outperform the stock market, in my opinion, by a million miles? Well, first of all, let me bring in what I call my first P. You need to leverage what I call pounds. You need to leverage your pounds. What do I mean by that? Well, let's take our £100,000, and with our £100,000, instead of just buying one house, why don't we buy four? We buy four houses, and we buy them for £100,000 each, and we put down a deposit. We put down a 25% deposit. So we buy each of these houses for £75,000. Now, when the market goes up 10%, we've got four houses going up in value, not one. So our four houses go up in value, and you can see here they're all worth about £110,000 each. And we can actually go back to the bank and say, hey, bank, the houses are worth £110,000. Can I borrow 75% of the new value? And the bank are going to go, yeah, you can do that as long as you put your rents up. And you will have put your rents up because you're following my systems. So they lend you now £82,500 against the house being worth 110. You pay off the old mortgage, you've borrowed an extra 7,500 on house number one. But you've got four of these. So 7,500 times four, you've got an extra £30,000 now that's now back in your pocket that you've been able to refinance and release, and they put that money back in your bank account. You've still got these four houses. They're going to grow, go up in value. They're rented out. They're making you profit. Now, I want to point out a couple of key things now that are different to the slide before when you bought it for cash. The first is that you're making more rental profit. People say to me, if I buy one house for cash, I'll make more rental profit. No, you buy one house for cash, £600 of rent, let's say. Once you've taken the costs away, you might be making £350 a month. In this example, you've got four houses rented out with mortgages on them, but if they're making you £150 a month each, you've got four of them, that's £600 a month. You're on more rental profit because you've got the four instead of the one. Okay. Secondly, if a house becomes empty, if one house becomes empty on its own, you've got a problem. All your eggs in one basket. If four houses are there, one becomes empty, the other three will look after the fourth. You're never going to have to put your own money in. They're two key things, but even more important for you to get this leverage piece, okay? When the market went up 10%, in the previous example, the market went up 10%, I made 10,000, I made 10% growth. Here, the market goes up 10% because I've got four houses, 40K of equity growth. I make £40,000 of growth. The market only went up 10%, I get 40% results. And even better, I've got £30,000 back out. The market went up 10%. I've got 30% of my money back out. And I can either put that back in my bank account and keep it, or I can use it to buy house number 5. Okay. So that's using banks. That's why we're going to use the bank to buy our properties. We're going to use mortgages, mortgage finance at 75%. Let's look next, by the way, and those of you, by the way, that've got equity sat in your houses, your residential house or your buy-to-lets, you want that equity to be working. When it's sat there, it's earning you nothing, like the previous example. In this example, you get it out, you've got more houses, you're not spending it on a holiday, you're not wasting the equity, you're just moving it to somewhere where it's of more use to you. You're moving the equity somewhere else. If your spouse or loved one's concerned that you're going to go spend it on a holiday, this is different to taking your equity out and wasting it. You're just moving it somewhere else. You can always sell these up again and move it back again if you want. Don't do that, but you can if you want. Let's look at the second P. What's the second P? The second P is price. So now let's use banks' mortgages, but let's also buy at discount. Now, I'm telling you right now that the market's going to drop 10%. I told you that in video 1. On top of that, if you use my system and you buy with further discount on top of that. So I'm going to show you, by the way, that system in video 4. I'll show you exactly how to buy the right houses to the right rules. And I'm going to show you how you can make sure you're buying with this 70.5% discount. So let's look at that. Let's say we've got a £100,000 house now, but instead of buying it for 100,000, we buy it 70.5% discount. So now we're buying it for 82,500. Look at the top left house there. And we put down a 25% deposit, is £21,000, okay, or £20,000, and we're able to buy this house and it's up and running. So with our £100,000 investment now, same investment, we're able to buy 5 houses instead of the one we bought for cash earlier on. I know there's maybe a couple of thousand extra needed, but we're able to buy 5. So what happens now when the market goes up 10%? Now we've got 5 houses going up in value. So the market goes up 10%. We've got £50,000 worth of asset growth. On top of that, though, we bought at discount to start with. So we've got £87,500 worth of locked-in discount before we even, when we started, we bought with discount, and £50,000 worth of equity growth. The market's only gone up 10%. Our £100,000, we've got £137,500 of equity growth plus discount, plus the 100,000 we started with. This is crazy. We've doubled it through. And on top of that, if we go back to the banks now, we say, hey, bank, can I borrow, please? Can I borrow, please, 75% of the 110? Just like we did on the previous slide. Can I borrow 75% of the 110? It's gone up now. They go, yeah. They go, you can borrow 75% of the 110. Well, how much is that? That's £82,500. They're lending us now on the mortgage what we borrowed to buy the house. We're able to release out £20,000 back out into our pocket from house number 1. Same from house number 2. Same from house number 3, 4, 5. On our 5 houses, we've just released back out the money we put in to buy the 5 houses to start with. And we can either pay ourselves back or we can go again and buy another 5, which is what you're going to do. This is the beauty of leveraging buying with mortgage finance and buying with discount. You have to do the two. You have to. And if you don't know how, you have to get someone to help you. You've got to buy in this next window that's coming up, July to December, and you have to do the two. Now, I want you to get something else, okay? Let's take that model. And you just go buy 3 houses to start with. If you've got the money to get 3 houses in this opportunity that's coming soon, and you buy 3 houses, and then you wait for the market to just go up over a couple of years, and the market goes and increases over the next couple of years, you can refinance those 3 houses that you've bought, and you can buy house number 4. And then you wait. So the start of year 3, you've bought house number 4. Then you wait another couple of years. And because you've bought at discount, and because the market goes up over that next couple of years, you can refinance the 4 houses. But because there's 4 now going up in value, you can release a bit more. So now you can release from the 4, you can release enough for deposits to buy house number 5 and 6. So literally 5 years from now, you can be in a position where you've got 6 houses in your portfolio. You started with 3, but you've not put another penny in. House 4 was in effect free. It wasn't free, of course, but you released the equity from the first 3. You haven't had to put any more money in. You get house 4 for free. Then you release from that, and house 5 and 6 you've got for free. You haven't had to put any other money in. You've now got 6 houses in your portfolio. Now, at that point, the rental profits from those 6 houses, plus the equity you could release, you can choose to keep releasing and buy more and more houses, or you can choose to release the equity and you can live off it. And you're on £55,000 a year. £55,000 a year in just 5 years' time. On a pension in the current market, you'd need £1.25 to £1.5 million in your pension pot to be able to retire on that. How long is it going to take you to put that together? Here, you've just needed to find the money to buy just 3 houses, and you've been able to, within 5 years, grow it to £55,000 a year. I hope this is whetting your appetite, because it excites me every time I show it to people. Now, please be clear. I've modeled that based on 7.9% growth, because that's the national average, okay? So let's go back to that growth slide. That's the national average. I would prefer you to model cautiously. The reality is it does go up at 7.9% a year, but let's model cautiously, and let's model. When I do my modeling, I do all my modeling at 5% growth. Now, the reason I do that, look at the dotted line on this graph that I showed you before. So the bold line is what actually happened in the housing market. The dotted line is taking that house back in 1969, that £3,800 house that's grown to be worth by 2009, 175,000 plus. If it had just gone up at 5% per annum, that £3,800 house, 50 years on, would have only been worth £26,000, a seventh of the actual true value. That, for me, is modelling cautiously. You know, even if you go back to after only about 10 years, at the end of the 1970s, start of the 1980s, it was a quarter, a seventh, 1982, 83, a seventh of the value. So let's model cautiously. And if you model cautiously, it might take you 8 years to be on £50,000 a year. You buy 3 now, take that first step, get 3 bought between now and December, and then literally within 8 years, cautiously, you're on 50,000 a year. What could you do in your life right now if you were on 50,000 a year? What different choices could you make? What options would it give you in your life? This is property. This is real life. But it only happens if you grab this once in a lifetime for you now opportunity of this window of July to December. You've got to take action and grab that situation. Now, what I want to show you and kind of teach you next is, how the heck do you release that 50,000? I get what you're saying, Aaron, but why does 6 properties give me 50,000? How does that work? And what I'm going to share with you is what many even property investors don't even understand. You might be a property investor already. I want to show you how the professionals in property take their profits tax efficiently, and how it means with somewhere between 6 to 10 properties, you can be financially free, and you will be financially free if you take action now. By the way, some of you can get 10 before Christmas, and then you're going to be on 50,000 a year going forward when the market's rising 5% a year. Some of you can start with 2 or 3, and it's going to take that bit longer, but it's not long in the scheme of things, is it? So let's have a look. First of all, let's look next at what I call good debt and bad debt. If you were brought up like me, and most people interested in property were, they were taught about they were only taught about debt. And you were brought up by parents probably that said, debt is bad, pay it off, and savings are good, okay? And you want to thank your parents because they've got you to the place that you're at now. But the thing that I want you to understand is that it isn't as simple as that. If you're brought up by a parent that's an investor and not a saver, that's a saver's mentality, that debt is bad and saving is good. An investor knows that there is good debt and bad debt. So let's talk about that. What is a bad debt? A bad debt is a debt that you have to pay whether you use something or not, whether you get out of bed or not. So for example, you can go on holiday for 2 weeks. You can't at the moment, but in general, go on holiday for 2 weeks and you're not even in your house, but you're still having to pay your mortgage on it. That's a bad debt. You can not even drive your car, but if you've got a car loan, you've still got to pay the car loan. That's a bad debt. A credit card's a bad debt. An overdraft's a bad debt. A bad debt you're having to pay regardless of using it. So what's a good debt? Well, a good debt has to meet 2 key criteria. First of all, somebody else pays for it, not you. And in the property world, that is the tenant. The tenant pays for it, not you. The second rule it has to meet is it makes you money on top. So somebody else pays for it, not you, and it makes you money on top. Let me ask you a question. If somebody else was paying for it, not you, and it was making you money on top of that, how much debt would you like? It's a pretty obvious question. As much as I can possibly get. Hopefully I'm hearing you shout at the screen. Somebody else is paying for it and it's making you money. I want as much as I can possibly get. And again, provided you buy to the right rules and make sure the right rules are in place, I'll cover that in video 4, then you're going to be in a position, where forever somebody else is paying for it, not you, instead of buying the wrong one, so you sometimes have to pay. And it makes you money on top. How cool would that be? And then you know for certain, if you can get to 6, 7, or 8 houses, you're done. You're cooked. You're cooked. You're financially free for life. Somebody else is paying for it, not you, and you're financially free for life. Okay, so let's look now at how the professionals take their profits tax efficiently, and you can too. There are 3 main taxes that affect you as a property investor. There is income tax, there is capital gains tax, and there is inheritance tax. Okay, and I want you to be tax efficient across all 3. So if you've got a pen and paper, I'm going to ask you to write down 2 statements, and these are your fundamentals for your property investing tax returns for the rest of your life. They work with the old tax methods, they work with the new tax methods, they make you tax efficient for life, and it's just 2 fundamentals, and here they are. So write these down and then I'm going to explain them. The first that I'm going to ask you to write down is never ever sell my investment properties. So never ever sell my investment properties. The second one I'm going to ask you to write down, So the first was never ever sell my investment properties. The second is, as the property increases in value, increase my debt against it. As the property increases in value, increase my debt against it. Now, you might feel a bit more uncomfortable with the second one, but I'm going to explain it, and you'll feel really comfortable when I've finished. So as the property increases in value, increase my debt against it. And statement one was never, ever sell my investment properties. So let's explain why I've just made those two statements and why they're your key fundamentals for your property tax life going forward. Let's deal first of all with income tax. So let's look at the monthly cash flow on an everyday property. Okay, so here you've got a £90,000 property. It's got a £67,500 mortgage on it. It's on interest only, okay? And the interest rate's 4.5%. You'll get cheaper than that at the moment, obviously, but the interest rate's 4.5%. So the rent you've got coming in is $650 a month. You've got a mortgage at $253. You've got your maintenance costs going out. Let's say it's £80 a month. It's about £1,000 a year for a 3-4 bedroom family house. By the way, everything I'm talking to you about so far, this isn't taking any big risks. This is buying safe, secure, family-let properties. 3-4 bedroom family-let properties. You don't need to go get an HMO and have all the hassle that goes with that. You don't need to have a holiday let or service accommodation and deal with people coming in and out all the time and the cleaners and everything else. This is family-let, safe, secure, getting other people to do all the work for you so you can enjoy your family. So maintenance is about £1,000 a year. Buildings insurance about £20 a month. Your letting agency, let's say, £78, £80 a month. So in this example, in this particular example, you've got $650 coming in, you've got those costs coming out. This property is making you £219 a month. Okay. Now, if you're a 40% taxpayer, that's roughly what you pay tax on. 20% taxpayer, that's roughly what you pay tax on. Okay. It's changed a bit with the change in the tax rules, but just as a concept thing for now, I just want you to get that. Okay. So if you then move forward, okay, and you decide to pay the mortgage off. So let's assume you were a saver and you were taught that debt was bad, savings good, so you've got this mortgage on repayment, okay? And we'll have somebody else, we'll call him Joe Bloggs. So Joe Bloggs says he's got an identical house to you. Identical house, same return, same setup, they're semi-detached next to each other, and Joe Bloggs has the same job as you as well. Okay, so you and Joe now have these houses, but you decide to pay the debt off. So over the next 10 or 15 years, you take some of your savings or some of the profit you're making from the rental profits and you pay that mortgage down to zero. What are the rewards that you're going to get from the government for doing that? Joe's decided not to. Joe's had my training. Joe works with me. He goes, I'm not paying the mortgage down. I'm keeping it high. Aaron says, don't pay them off. But you pay the mortgage down to zero. Let's look at the rewards you get. Here it is. So you pay that mortgage down to zero. The government are going to come on and say, hey, you've paid the mortgage off. So you're not able to offset that mortgage interest anymore. So the profit you're making has now gone up by an extra £253 a month. You've got the same job as Joe Bloggs. You've got the same identical property as Joe Bloggs, rented out for the same money as Joe Bloggs. But because you're making that extra profit, you're a 40% taxpayer, let's assume. I'm going to bill you, this is the Inland Revenue, we're going to bill you an extra £100 a month. You're going to pay an extra £100 a month more than Joe. In fact, that's £1,200 a year. Congratulations, you paid the mortgage off. You get to pay an extra £1,200 a year, more tax than Joe, even though you've got the same jobs and the same houses. That's crazy, isn't it? You've paid the mortgage off and they tax you more. They tax you more. So don't pay it off. Now let's go back to Joe. Joe has done my training. So Joe has got this £650 a month of rent coming in, but he's going to put the rents up every year 3 to 5%. So next year his rent's $670. The year after it's $690. The year after it's $710. By the way, I'll teach you in a different video, but you always want to be putting your rents up. Always, always, always. No one moves out for the sake of £20 or £30 a month. So Joe puts his rent up to $670, $690, $710, but he's now got a problem for his income tax, hasn't he? Because that extra £60 of profit is going to be dropping onto the bottom line. He's going to be paying more tax. He doesn't want to do that. Now, over the next 3 years, with inflation, the maintenance costs will have gone up. Let's say they've gone up, the maintenance costs have gone up, and they may be now £90 a month. Okay, so with inflation, maintenance is now £90 a month. But on top of that, what else happens with inflation? Well, with inflation, the value of the property will have gone up as well, be worth more. So Joe goes back to the bank and says, like I was showing you earlier, he says, do you know what? My house is worth more now. Can I borrow 75% of the new value, please? And the bank said, well, Joe, you've been putting your rents up each year, so there's more money available to pay an increased mortgage. So yeah, that's okay. You can increase your mortgage. You will need to pay more. And Joe goes, that's fine. I've got more rent to pay for it. So they go, that's fine. So he increases the mortgage amount and releases some money back into his bank account. I'm going to come back to what he does with that in a little while. The bottom line from an income tax point of view, his income has gone up by £60 a month. It's increased from £650 to £710. But his maintenance cost has gone up £10 a month. For easy numbers for me, let's say the mortgage goes up £50 a month. So he's offset the increased income with the increased cost. Bottom line, his net income stays at £219 a month like it was 2-3 years ago before the rent rises. His income tax bill stays the same. So if you follow that second statement that I gave you, as the value of the property goes up, increase your debt against it, increase it to 75%. The rents are always paying for the mortgage. Someone else is paying for the debt, no problem. And it's making you a profit of £219 a month. And you're staying income tax efficient. You're paying no more income tax, even though your rents have gone up. If you pay the mortgages off, you pay a load more tax. So as the property goes up in value, increase your debt against it. Now, I want us to be capital gains tax efficient and inheritance tax efficient as well. So let's look next at capital gains. So let's imagine you bought a property for £100,000 and over the next 15 years, it doubles in value. So it now becomes worth £200,000. Now, remember, on average, property prices go up at 7.9% a year. Actually, property prices double on average every 8 or 9 years. But I want us to be cautious. So let's say it takes 15 years for it to double, okay? And then 15 years after that, it's doubled again. It's gone from £200,000 in value to £400,000 in value. So you've had a gain over that period of £300,000. Now, let's assume you get to that point 30 years from now, and you're saying, do you know what? I want to go for a trip around the world, a dream trip. I'm going to sell my property to have a dream trip, or I want to buy a dream house in Spain, a villa, and I'll sell now and I'll take this money, I'll buy that house. So you sell your house for £400,000. This isn't your residential house, you buy to let, you sell it for £400,000. And the government are going to step in, they're going to say, hey, you've made a £300,000 gain here in the value of the house, you've now sold it. We're going to charge you 28% tax on that if you're a 40% taxpayer. So that's an £84,000 tax bill. Or by the way, if you're a 20% taxpayer, it's still 18% tax, £54,000 tax bill. You get a massive tax bill. So you sell it for £400,000, you pay the tax bill of £84,000, you pay off the estate agents and the solicitors, you're probably left with about £300,000 in the bank, and off you go and you buy your dream villa or you have your dream trip, okay? Big dream trip. So that's option one. But option two, you say, do you know what? Aaron told me, I wrote it down, never, ever sell my investment properties. What did Aaron advise me to do? He said, I know. He said, as it goes up in value, increase the debt against it. My rents have gone up for the last 30 years. I can go to the bank and borrow £300,000 against a house worth £400,000. And that £300,000 they're going to put in my bank account. So you end up with the £300,000 anyway in your bank account, and you go buy the dream villa in Spain, or you go on your dream trip of a lifetime. But guess what? What's the difference with the second option versus the first option? You still own the house. You still own the house. You haven't paid the taxes, but you still own the house. What's going to happen to that house over the next 15 years? It's going to double in value again. It's going to go from 400,000 to 800,000. And this isn't a trick question. Whether you are here or not, whether you've passed away, you and your kids, your family will be here, that £800,000, what will happen in the next 15 years after that? It's going to double in value again. What's it going to be worth? If it doubles in value, 800,000 doubles in value, £1.6 million. By selling the property when it was worth £400,000, you gave up on a further £1.2 million worth of equity growth for you and your family. £1.2 million worth of equity because you sold it. when you could have kept it, still taking your money out and get all that future growth. So I am telling you to literally die owning your properties. Never, ever, ever sell them. Take them to the grave with you. I see people in their 60s and their 70s and they're busy selling their properties. And I'm like screaming at them, what are you selling them for? They're saying, I'm just tidying things. I'm like, you need to die first. And by the way, I'm not saying die early. Don't die earlier. Die whenever you are planning to die. But have them sold later once you've died. Okay, you can comfortably get mortgages to the age of 90, buy-to-let finance to the age of 90. And those of you like me who are planning to live longer than that, okay, you can get commercial finance then well into your hundreds, basically till the day you die. Okay, so you're going to die owning these. You're going to take them to the grave. You never pay that tax. There's something called capital gains tax washout. You can go Google it. Capital gains tax washout. If you sell the property, let's say I had a property that's worth £800,000 and I sell it the day before I die. I've made a £700,000 gain. They tax me 28%. I'm paying £200,000 in tax because I sold the house. If I die and the kids sell it the next day, I'm going to come on to inheritance tax next, but if I die and they sell it the next day, the capital gains tax gets written off. Me and the family had a £700,000 gain and we didn't pay a penny in tax on it because of capital gains tax washout. You need to die owning your properties. Okay. Is this stuff useful? I'm sure it is. The third piece is inheritance tax. Let's talk about that. Okay. From an inheritance tax point of view, if you have £1 million portfolio and you ignored me and you paid your debts off, and now you pass away and your kids inherit the portfolio, the government are going to turn up on the doorstep, or the Inland Revenue are going to say, hey, you've got 6 months to pay the tax bill and there's £1 million portfolio with no debt on it. So there's £1 million of equity. That's what you're paying tax on. And it's 40% tax. So I need a £400,000 tax bill, please, from you. And you need to pay that to me in the next 6 months, say the Inland Revenue. And unless you're a genius, you might have died in a flat or a falling market. So your kids now scramble to sell this portfolio. They end up selling it at discount to somebody like me, and I buy it for 800,000, 900,000, 800,000. So they end up, you've worked all your life to build this portfolio of £1 million. They end up selling it for less than it's worth, then paying the tax bill. They end up with less than £500,000 after all that work that you did because you didn't set this up right. But if you set this up right, if you borrow 75% of what it's worth, you've now got £1 million portfolio, but it's got £750,000 worth of debt on it. That's good debt. The tenants are paying for it, not you. It's making you a load of money. But now the tax is on the equity. The equity is only the difference between the 750,000 and the million. So you only pay tax on the £250,000. So looking at the slide again, 40% tax on that is only £100,000 in tax instead of £400,000 in tax. I know which tax I'd rather give my kids. They can just sell one house now and just, that's all they need to sell. Or, by the way, if they're working with me and I've done for you clients, they're not going to sell any houses because you're going to set up, so you make that tax bill only about £10,000, by the way. But I don't have time to cover that right now. But here's my point. You follow those two fundamental statements. Never, ever sell my investment property. And as the property goes up in value, increase my debt. And you're income tax efficient, capital gains tax efficient, and inheritance tax efficient now. It's massive, absolutely massive. Final piece. You might be sat there going, this sounds amazing. I love being tax efficient, but where's the profit? It's going to take an awful lot of properties at £200 a month for me to get that income of 50,000 you keep talking about. How the heck does that work, Aaron? Well, let me show you how that works. Let's imagine, okay, that you had bought one property for £100,000, and you put down a £25,000 deposit. You haven't even bought it for discount, and you've got to buy for discount in this window that's coming. And I'm going to show you how to do that for you. But let's assume you haven't bought for discount. You buy this £100,000 house, you get a mortgage on it of £75,000, and you've got equity of £25,000. That was your deposit you put down. Let's imagine the market goes up 20%, okay, over time. That can take 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. It doesn't matter, just for the principle so you get it. And by the way, if we buy at discount, we're going to buy at 17% plus discount. That's going to take care of most of that 20% rise. You don't even need the market to move to get the 20% I'm talking about. But for simplicity for now, let's assume we just wait for the market to go up 20%. Your house is now worth 120,000. You go back to the bank and say, hey, bank, can I get a mortgage of 75% of the new value? They say, yeah, you've put your rents up, that's fine. So they lend you £90,000. You pay off your old mortgage of £75,000 and you get released a further £15,000, the extra money you've borrowed, and that gets put in your bank account. Just like when you released money on a residential mortgage in the past, they put that money in your bank account, don't they? If you release money to build a conservatory, they put it in your bank account. I want you to notice three things on this slide, three crucial things. The first thing I want you to notice, okay, is on the right-hand side. Even though we've borrowed more money, if we were to sell, don't sell, but if we were, the equity in the house is now 30,000, not 25. And that continues to go through the years as you go down the slide, okay? The second thing I want you to notice is the compound effect, which is beautiful in property. To start with, we looked at 20% of 100,000, it went up £20,000. But next time it goes up 20% over the next 2 or 3, 4 years, that increase is 20% of 120. So it now goes up in value £24,000. I can release £18,000. The time after that, it goes up 20%. It goes up in value £28,000. I can release £21,000 tax-free. It's an inflation-proof release. The amount I can release goes up through the years. The third thing I want you to notice on this slide is it's tax-free. That money that you release is money that you have borrowed. It gets put in your bank account, but it's not an income, so there is no tax to pay on it. Who likes tax-free money? I definitely do. Okay. So if we get that concept, you should be smiling by now. If you're not, start smiling. This is amazing. This is how the professionals take their profits. But if you get that concept, let's assume we buy one house, we buy 2 houses. So we've got 2 of these properties that we bought for £100,000. They go up in value 20%, or you bought a discount that you're going to be able to do in this coming months. So it didn't need to go up a full 20%. It only needs to go up about 5 or 10%. It goes up in value, let's say, though. But it goes up 20% in this example. You're able to release £15,000 from house 1, £15,000 from house 2. So you've got £30,000 back in your pocket. What does that allow you to do? It allows you to buy house number 3. That's your deposit for house number 3. You've then got 3 going up in value. Now 3 don't need to go up as much. 3 only need to go up 13% each to give you enough money to buy house number 4. 4 need to go up 10% each to give you enough money to buy house number 5. 5 go up 8% each, enough money to buy house 6. 6 go up 7% each to give you enough money to buy number 7. 7 to go up 6% each to give you enough money to buy number 8. Once you get to 8 houses, the market only needs to go up at 5% a year, and you can buy another house a year with none of your own money. You're not adding any extra money to buy these houses. You just put the money to start with to get the first 2 or 3, 2 in this example. Okay. So just starting with these 2 in this example without any discounts. You're going to start with more maybe, and you're going to start with discounts to explode this. But just starting with 2 with no discounts. Let's fast forward 10 years, starting with 2 with no discounts. 2, 10 years, fast forward. The market's gone up just 5% a year. Let's be cautious from that point of view as well. Now let's have a look at this. Each of these houses is worth about 150,000 each. How many would you have by then? You'd have about 9. Just starting with 2, releasing when you can get another, release when you can get another. If it just goes up at 5% a year, no discounts on the way, you'd have about 9. You've got about £1.4 million worth of property now on this slide. You've got £1 million worth of mortgages, but it's good debt. Tenants are paying for it, and they're making you £200 a month per property. Got 9 of them. So you're on about 25,000 a year in rental profit at this point. And the equity position is 350,000 if you sold it. Don't, but if you did. Now let's look at how the professionals make their profits. I meet you in 10 years' time. I go, hey, how's it going? You go, it's amazing. I've got this portfolio. It's making me 25,000 of rental profits. I grew it so quickly. And I only started with 2. It's just amazing, Aaron. I go, cool. Are you going to get some more? You say, I've got enough. So I say, okay, cool. So a year later, I meet you again. The market's gone up another 5% to be cautious. So your £1.4 million worth of property is now worth, on this second line, 1.47. It's gone up in value £70,000. I say, hey, you're just doing exactly what you did for the last few years. You can refinance and release out 75% of that increase. You're going to be able to release out 52,500 tax free. Isn't that cool? You can buy some more houses. You say, hey, Aaron, That is cool, but you're forgetting, I don't want to buy more houses. 9's enough for me. I said 9 was enough. I say, okay, great, no problem. Release out that 52,000, and instead of buying more houses with it, why don't you go on holiday with it? Why don't you go buy a car with it? In fact, why don't you quit your job and live off it? 52,000 tax-free, plus 25,000 of rental profit. That's 75,000 virtually tax-free. By the way, next year, when it goes up 5% again, that compound effect, it's inflation-proofed. You get to release 55,000 next year. The year after that, 58,000 tax-free. Tax-free. And this was just buying 2 and not buying at discount. Imagine if you bought more in the next few months or were able to do that. And imagine if you bought with those 17% plus discounts that I'm going to show you how to get. This is amazing. By the way, if you're not smiling now, I don't know when you ever will. This is so cool. This is how the professionals take their profits from property. This is how the professionals make so much money. And this is why you only need 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 properties. Depends what your goals are. Depends how big you want that number to be. But it's nowhere near 20 to 25. You get to just 6 properties over the next 5 years. If the market's going up at 7.9% per annum by then, you'll be on 50K. Or if it just goes up at 5% per annum, it might take you 8 years, you'll be on 50K. How does that compare to waiting for your pension to get to where you've got 1.25 or 1.5 million pounds on it, and all the uncertainty of whether your pension, you'll get a good annuity at the time you retire? Will the stock market be strong or not when you retire? It's random. Totally random. Or how does it compare to needing something like 40 million pounds in savings with the savings rates the banks are giving right now with the base rate where it is to get that 50,000 of income? Okay, I know the base rate won't stay that long forever, but needing millions in the bank to have it from savings. How does this compare? You need to find the money, and you've probably already got it in equity in your house or cash, to be able to just get 3 houses, 4 houses, 5 houses, 2 houses in this next window. So here's an action for you I'm going to give you to finish this video off. The action that I'm recommending is you go find out what money you do have to invest. What equity do you have in your current buy-to-lets? If you borrowed up to 75% on them, what equity is sat in there? What equity is sat in your house that you could temporarily move and lend to your investment strategy? You're going to pay it back. You want to pay that family, your own residence. There's no better feeling getting debt-free at home. You want to pay that off. So you might lend the money temporarily for 4 or 5 year strategy to build this portfolio. And then the first thing we do with the profits is we pay it back, and we pay it back off. Okay. But we're talking here about significant profits. So go work out, do that as an exercise. Go work out how much money you've got. And then in the next video in the series, I'm going to just walk you through how somebody, an everyday person, in fact, 2 or 3 everyday people, were able to start with everyday money, but just take some equity or take some cash they've got and kind of double their income in a short period of time, or make it so they were able to retire in 2 or 3 years, or 5, 6, 7, 8 years. I'm just going to show you a couple of examples and exactly step by step what they did, so you can do the same. So go take those actions, go make sure you work out how much money you've got, and make sure you join me on the 3rd video of the series so you can see how you can put these steps together to make this happen for you. Really hope you found the video useful. Thanks for tuning in, and I will speak to you again really soon. Take care of yourself. I'll speak soon. Thank you.